Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Christian Humanist. I'm Damien. In this channel, we talk about topics related to religion, God, society, and culture, but critically, we approach them from a man centric perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a, let's say, a world centric or life centric perspective, which is to say that we don't get lost, so we try not to get lost in the arcane and the complex. In the transcendental, so to speak. I mean, these things are important, no doubt, but we need to ground them in reality, okay, in the material, in the existential, okay, and to make these immensely important, immensely complex subject matters relatable, accessible, and more importantly, impactful to your life. That is to say that you can take action based on what these things are, as opposed to get lost in the mystical and the grand and the arcane, okay. If that is something for you, then you're in the right place. So the topic for today is a guy named the Daily Disciple. Okay, that's his YouTube channel. Okay, and he's a rather popular YouTuber. One could say he's been doing this for a while, it seems. And he's put out a video, arguably his most popular one, on how I think the title of the video is "How I Found Freedom from Lust." Okay, that's the title of his video. So yeah, so this guy, he's a young YouTuber. He's been doing this for a while, it seems, and he has some interesting things to say on on this and of course many other things as a Christian, right? I'm not really sure what his denomination is, but he's doing pretty well on YouTube, and this is a pertinent subject matter. Certainly, it's something that interests me, so I thought I might respond to it. Well, first of all, the video itself, okay, the idea of how I found freedom from lust, okay. I mean, first of all, when you have something like that written as a write up, and of course that's now been made into a video and posted. Okay, it's obviously a sort of a way to bring people in. Okay, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there, a lot of Christians, a lot of young people in youth ministry and so on, who are trying to find freedom from lust, trying to liberate themselves from their sexual wants and desires. Okay, maybe not in that exact manner, but it's something many people feel, one could say, certainly in these Christian circles, which admittedly I've been a part of. Now, to be clear, I'm not here to criticize those institutions. I'm not here to say these things are bad or not, but specifically the issue here is, why come out with this sort of thing? Okay, why say this? Okay, how did I find freedom from lust? I mean, clearly there's a problem with the person in question. Okay, in other words, the idea of lust itself, okay, the fact that it exists at some level, okay, is a problem. Okay, but more specifically, what kind of problem? Okay, in other words, how did this problem emerge in the first place? Okay, that I think is a more pertinent consideration. Okay, as opposed to just saying, how I found freedom from lust, which means that he has had lust. Okay, and now he's trying to liberate himself from it. The deeper question is, what is lust? Okay, how do you get to a stage where you start feeling these sort of things? Okay, what makes you feel this overwhelming urge for presumably sex? Okay, that's what it is. Because there's a tendency here, I think certainly true in the Christian worldview, okay, to see this as a problem in and of itself, as opposed to looking at it from a, let's say, a developmental standpoint. Okay, that is to say, how did this problem emerge? Okay, what gave rise to it? Okay, so in simple terms, lust is overwhelming urge for sexual intimacy, okay, which presupposes a lack thereof. Okay, in other words, the person is not getting any sex or any kind of intimacy to start with, which in turn has led him to a state where there's overwhelming desire or need for it. And that's pretty logical, is it not? Now, how do you get to a stage where you're burning with desire to start with? Okay, basically it means that you got to a point where you're not satisfied, you're not sexually fulfilled. Okay, which in turn has led you to a state where you're trying to deal with lust. Okay, so there's an underlying problem. Okay, it's an underlying issue, which is not as serious, one could say, as hey, basic urge. Okay, I want to be with someone. Okay, that is a practical problem which requires a practical solution. Okay, of course we can get into the metaphysics of why it's there, how do you deal with it, whatnot. But fundamentally, though, the urge for sex, okay, is the issue here. Okay, not being able to deal with it is a problem. Okay, and not being able to deal with that problem in turn leads to lust. Okay, so that is something for us to consider. Okay, that's the first point. Now that's the most important one. Okay, now that will be the sort of the foundation for everything that will transpire in this video. So critically, when you have that in mind, so when you're cognizant of this issue, okay, that is to say that you have the urge for physical intimacy, right? I think in a Maslowian sense, that's one of the most fundamental needs. Okay, probably more important than love, or it's not as important, but it's intertwined with a survivalist imperative. Okay, the need for shelter, food, and sex. Okay, which is, I mean, it's critical, listener. I mean, to put this in perspective, I'll return to this point again. Is that it's not just the idea of the act itself, but it's the urge and how that affects your other behaviors, how it motivates you to do other things. Okay, that's a different story, but just keep the thought in mind. Now coming back to the video itself. Okay, now what this guy does in the video, right? This Daily Disciple. Okay, I mean, I don't know who this guy is personally. I don't even know his name. And I'm sure he's genuine with what he's saying. But the problem here is this: when you put out a video like this, how I found freedom from lust, it sort of assumes, or you're made to think that this guy has somehow mastered this problem. Okay, that he's somehow overcome the issue of lust. Okay, and if you go through the video, right, it doesn't seem that evident. Okay, in fact, he has done a lot of other videos on the subject matter. Okay, it seems like a recurring problem for him. Admittedly, understandably. Okay, you gotta expect this, especially from a person in a religious worldview, in a Christian environment, in a Christian congregation, especially these youth groups and so on, where if you've been a part of them, you're constantly told why premarital intercourse is bad, why premarital relations are probably bad. I mean, in fact, there's this one guy called Matt Fred. I've already spoken about him before, who basically discourages the idea of dating in your teens. Okay, that means if you're a teenager, don't date. Okay, don't go out and don't meet members of the opposite sex, because that could lead to fornication, right? That's basically the gist of it. Okay, that's his idea. Now the problem is this. Okay, if you put forward such a position, okay, which admittedly is what's going on here. Okay, going back to my earlier point as to why people feel lust, that is, the overwhelming urge for sex, it means that they're not satisfied. They're not able to have basic intimacy. Okay, now intimacy is not basic, of course. Of course, it means you got to connect with another human being. Okay, a girl you're into, girl you desire, okay, girl you're attracted to, okay. But in turn, that having that connection in turn has a moderating effect, okay. If you're filled with lust, it means that you're not getting something very fundamental. You're having something that's very basic to the human condition is not being addressed, okay. And speaking of that urge for sex, I mean, that starts right at the time of puberty. Okay, it begins then. So question is what's been happening from that point onward. Okay, now the interesting point with this guy, this daily disciple, is that he doesn't really tell, okay, or rather he doesn't engage the relational question. He doesn't engage the human element in his equation. Okay, basically externalizes the problem. Okay, he begins with an example of when he was 12 or 13 or something, when he started feeling all these things. Well, understandably, that's when in puberty you start noticing girls, you start feeling things, and anyway, that's very human. Okay, that's not a bad thing. Okay, wanting to have sex is not it's not evil in and of itself. Okay, getting aroused is not immoral. Okay, watching videos of girls in two-piece bathing suits and feeling some kind of emotion as a result of it is not a bad thing. That means you're human. If you don't feel something, okay, if you don't feel that urge, if you don't feel that want or desire for intimacy, then mean there's something wrong with you. Okay, if you don't get aroused by looking at hot young women, okay, it means that you're pure. Okay, I'm not saying that's bad necessarily, or it means there's something else wrong with you. Okay, so coming back to this guy called the Daily Disciple. Okay, he doesn't seem to acknowledge that. Right? He doesn't acknowledge the basis of reality vis-a-vis our biological condition. Okay, desiring members of the opposite sex is natural. It's good. It's healthy. Okay, not having that urge is a problem. Okay, now in the video he goes through all these things of how he tries to deal with it, how he stops using his his iPod, I think, how he stops following hot girls on Instagram, how he switches out of all these hot videos, how he doesn't use TikTok and whatnot. Now you gotta just listen to this guy. The impression I'm getting is this. Okay, this person. Okay, I mean, there's some immaturity level involved here. I mean, I'm not sure what his personal life is like. But it's pretty clear that this person does not have a relational component. Okay, I mean, to put this in perspective, guys. I mean, if you're a guy, okay, let's speak about time growing up. Okay, when you are single, okay, when you're not meeting members of the opposite sex, okay, the urge for sex gets stronger. Okay, guys, that's basic common sense. That's something all of us, well, most of us, I guess, maybe there are some lucky guys out there, feel at some point or more often than not. Okay, when you're starved of female company, okay, which in turn leads to intimacy at varying levels. It's not just intercourse, folks. Okay, intimacy means going out on a date, holding hands, just having someone to talk to. Okay, all these things correspond to intimacy. Okay, and having that connection, having that experience, okay, having that opportunity, okay, in some ways negates or at least balances out the urge for sex. I mean, so again, let's speak from experience, guys. I mean, you and I may know this, right? The urge for sex is kind of complicated, okay? Because with women, women have a moderating effect on men. Okay, of course, it depends on the situation, depends on the context. Okay, but oftentimes, let's say a girl you're interested. Let me give an example. Let's say a hot girl you're into and you like her. Okay, the urge for sex it doesn't happen automatically, isn't it? Because a lot of times the connection, the emotional, the relational tends to sort of smooth things out, and the intimacy what has to develop slowly, more organically, okay, more progressively. Okay, paradoxically, having female company tends to slow things down, tends to make things more balanced. I think, come to think of it, a lot of the people, again, this guy, the Daily Disciple, is an example. his problems with with Instagram and TikTok, and ultimately I'm presuming hardcore pornography as well, probably results from a lack of intimacy. Okay, not having women in your life. Okay, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's not women as commodities, but just having that human connection in your life can be immensely beneficial. Okay, I mean, to put this in perspective. Okay, I remember. Let me think of an example as a teenager. Okay, he uses an example when he was 12 or 13, whatever. I remember, like, if I'm going out, okay, let's just say if I meet a girl and I'm speaking to her and have that connection, okay, if I can speak from my teenage years onward, okay, that always sort of takes things down a level or two. You guys with me here, okay? And then when it comes to actual intimacy, I don't want to get into that here, but that is a different kind of elevation. You need to sort of get to that stage as well. Like, you guys with me here? So it's not as simple as just happening, okay? The human element, the relational element, the biological element, when it comes to having another person in your life, okay, that is very significant. Now, this guy here, okay, this daily disciple, and I'm sure this is true for a lot of these religious people, okay, and I've been through this myself, okay, is that they don't engage the relational aspect, okay, because they're so fearful, and this is something I've already spoken about, okay, they're so fearful, they're so opposed to, premarital relations at any level, okay, to stopping people from having premarital sex, that they undermine and disempower, okay, and weaken the impetus or the urge to form that connection. Okay, now going back to this Matt Fred character, who I don't like at all, he's quite popular. I think he has a popular YouTube channel called Pints with Aquinas. I think he's interviewed some important people. But anyway, this guy, again, when he was in Steubenville, he was giving speeches in Steubenville, Ohio, right? He was constantly against teenage relationships. Again, people, they just hold off till they find their wife, whatever. This guy, right, the problem with him is that he's so opposed to premarital intercourse that he disempowers young people, it seems, and people in general, from having any kind of connection because of the danger or the evil of premarital sex. Now, the problem is that in turn creates the problem of lust, okay? Because you're not going to have that human connection. You're going to have the relational experience. You're not going to have all the good things, the positive things that result from a relationship. I mean, I'll give you an example, guys. I mean, just take a simple example. As an adult, okay, let's say you have been through a dry spell, okay. I mean, this is something a lot of us have been through. I've been through this, okay, where there are no women in your life, there are no hot girls, there's no one. Forget about having sex, okay, just having that connection to go out and have that relational component fulfilled, okay. You see a pretty girl, okay, and you speak to her, okay, and then she responds positively, okay. Let's just say you do a cold approach, you meet her. I know that language sort of comes from the dating world, so pardon me, because I'm quite familiar with this sort of things. And you speak to her and she responds, okay, and she you may not be fully open, she may not be down for a date, she may not be down to even give her a phone number, but even just saying hello, just getting the conversation going, and then that in turn leading to something else. And of course, if it works out, she might give you a number. If you go out, it's even better. And then when things start to happen, okay, you feel that energy, you feel that sensation, you feel that positivity, okay. And not all of that is sexual, not all of that is want you to get down and dirty, okay. It's a growth process, it's an uplifting process, okay. And that is very Christological, okay. It's very biblical, okay. It's the story of creation. God creates man and then he creates woman, okay. Immediately after the creation of man, woman follows, okay. So that means that we as human beings are meant to be in a state of intimacy more often than not. I mean, even St. Paul, who I don't like, I think St. Paul said this, right? I don't like St. Paul at all, his letters, but he has a lot of good insights. He says, look, there's so much lust around, so you should have your own partner, okay? So when it comes to these people, these Christian daily disciple, and all these other evangelical crowd, and frankly, these people come from the chastity, virginity people, right? The people who, the moral Puritans who refrain from to define their Christian identity on the basis that they don't have, premarital sex, or more pertinently here, on the absence of premarital relationships. That I think is the real issue. These people have nothing going on for them. Hence, they have the issue, okay? I mean, think about it, right? Why do you have to spend so much time on Instagram or on TikTok watching hot girls do their thing, okay? Why? It means you have nothing going on in your personal life. Okay? That's the only logical explanation. Of course, that's true if you're younger, if you're growing up, and it's hard for you to meet people. And of course, when we are in our teenagers, it's all hit and miss, right? And of course, this happens even when you get older as well. But the point is that learning curve is critical, okay? And then once you are able to get past it, okay, and then you have the reference experience, then you're able to relate to women better. Then the relational dimension is addressed, okay, that you have that part of your life covered, okay. Once that is done, then these issues tend to resolve themselves, for the most part, not completely, okay. So the point, listener, I want to make quickly is that people like this, the daily disciple, whatnot, and frankly, a lot of the Christian evangelists and so on are not considering the relational component. They're not talking about the need for intimacy vis-a-vis the human person, okay. And it's not all sexual, okay. Meeting a girl, going out, having a date, spending some time, making out, smooching, okay, hugging, all these things are critical. It's not having, okay, it's not just about having intercourse. Are you guys with me here? Okay, and this in turn, in a paradoxical sense, helps to moderate. Okay, helps to sort of calm and sort of direct, our sexual energies in the right direction. For the record, folks, and this is my last point. I don't want to speak too much here. Women have moderating effect on men. Okay, a lot of the urge and the lust, so to speak, that men feel is because there is the absence of that basic connection. There's a lack of intimacy in a good sense, okay, of the word. Okay, just to have someone. Okay, and then women's sexuality is a bit different from men. Okay, it's not always on. Okay, women are not always turned on, right? And not only when it comes to their physiology, when it comes to periods and so on, but the arousal systems are different. Okay, and we men have to sort of work according to that. Okay, and that is a good thing. Okay, so that has a moderating effect. Okay, so that's how you find an answer to these problems. Okay, people like Daily Disciple, okay, and all these other Christian moralists who are preaching chastity, virginity, who don't talk about relationships in a concrete way, in a real way, in a sensual way. Okay, for them it's all about controlling yourself and then trusting in Jesus and God to help you, and you have to keep praying so that God takes away your lust. What the hell is this, man? Is this serious? Okay, God has made us man and woman. He's given us the opportunity to connect. He's given us a physiology which is compatible, okay, which is beautiful in itself. Okay, so not having that part addressed in a practical way, in a relational way, and going out, meeting people, asking girls out on a date, facing rejection, okay, embracing your masculinity, not being afraid of your sexuality, doing those practical things concretely in the real world. These people are recommending that you start praying to God and asking Jesus to help you, and pray consistently and do not give in to temptation. What is this? Okay, now again, I'm not questioning the doctrinal values of the teachings themselves, but this does not provide practical, real life solutions. Okay, you're just going to get blue balled. Okay, there's no other way to say it. You're going to be filled with sexual frustration because you just can't not have sex. That is true, we get it, but preceding that, you're not getting the intimacy, you're not getting the connection, you're not meeting women, you're not getting a girl's phone number, you're not having that good conversation, you're not going out on a nice weekend holding hands. You need that in life. Okay, so I don't want to, again, for folks, critically here, there's a problem with this, and I'll speak more about this issue going forward. That video of his, right, how I found freedom from lust. Okay, that's it. How I found freedom from lust. Okay, I can pick about the video endlessly. Just so many problems with what he says. But this issue, the failure to recognize a relational component, the failure to recognize a relational dimension. Okay, and getting hung up on the moral and the spiritual. I'm going to pray to God to help me overcome lust. Okay, well, really, I'm going to read the Bible. I'm going to stop watching TikTok and Instagram. Needless to say, not visiting any of the hub sites. Right, you guys know what I mean. That is not the answer, guys. Okay, of course you can control yourself and all these other things. Okay, but the real issue is not having a decent, real, meaningful human connection. Okay, that is a real problem. Okay, and that requires practical solutions. Praying to God is not going to solve it. Okay, you can pray as much as you want to ask God to take away your lust, but what's really going on is that you're not getting laid, obviously, but you don't have the opportunity to make that connection. And the Christian worldview, it seems, certainly in the West, certainly in the Anglo-American world, especially in these evangelical circles, and I think even in the Catholic world, who stress the virginity, chastity, dogma so stringently, so strongly, they're working against the human impulse. Okay, the need for connection. Okay, the lust is a consequence of not having that connection, not having that human intimacy. Okay, that is their problem. That is what we need to address. Okay, and that means giving people the freedom, the license to meet members of the opposite sex and find that connection. Okay, that's what is required. Okay, there's no other way, folks. There is no in between ground here. Praying to God, asking God, praying in the Spirit, reading the Bible, not watching TikTok. That's not the solution here. Okay, and that is something we need to be clear about. Okay, good. All right, folks. This is the Christian Humanist. I'm Damien. Hope you like it. See you guys next time.